Hey, I'm Caleb. Welcome back to my channel. I've just spent about 10 days on board a luxurious riverboat cruise here in Germany, and I'm about ready to head home. By the way, this cruise was really fun, and if you'd like to see a full video about it, leave me a comment. Anyways, the cruise ended, I hopped on a train up to Frankfurt Airport, did a live stream on my channel on the first day of 2025, it was freezing cold outside, I saw some beautiful planes, and then morning came. I also managed to capture this awesome footage of a Boeing 747-8 of Lufthansa arriving into Frankfurt Airport. This would be the type of plane I'd be flying today, and the subject of today's trip report.
Good morning. What's up? I'm Caleb from Caleb's Aviation. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm in the very large Frankfurt International Airport, and today I will be flying home with Lufthansa on the Boeing 747-8 and hopefully being upstairs in business class still. I'm really looking forward to this trip. I'm flying from Frankfurt back to Newark. I flew the older 747-400 business class here about a week and a half ago, but that was not as great, but hopefully this is better. Let's go check out our gate. We're at the Z gates because we're flying back to the United States and see what's happening. See you there.
And here is my first stop today, to check out this beautiful 747-8. I intended to get some pictures for this video thumbnail, however, they were all very cringy and my editor agreed they were not worth using. So that killed some time.
That 747-8 you just saw over there that I got the pictures with is a 747-8, the type I'll be flying back to Newark. However, I really don't know what one I'm gonna get. There's like 18 747-8s they operate, I think. And I'm hoping for the retro one, although it'll be really hard to know. It flew to Newark the other day, so we'll see how it goes. Let's find our gate now and try to make that happen.
I saw the retro 747-8 I was supposed to be boarding, however, it was towed away to a remote stand for maintenance. I got this beautiful picture several days earlier, which was awesome, but I never got to fly the retro 747-8. However, there was still plenty to see today at Frankfurt Airport, like that tail of an Aegean A321neo, and a 747-8 with an A340-600, very rare. Also, if you're interested, I took a short flight from Frankfurt to Munich at the beginning of this trip with Lufthansa, and made a video. I even managed to find another vintage Boeing 747-400. The 747-400 is distinguished from the newer 747-8 with a slightly shorter hump upstairs, as well as winglets on the end of the wings. If you'd like to see more of the 400, check out my video, linked above. I also apologize, even though the weather isn't my fault, this footage was horrible. My camera kept insisting on focusing on the rain on the windows, instead of the 747s outside. And this 747-8 right here was my example pulling up. The 747-8 has a larger upper deck hump, which is quite noticeable compared to the 747-400. The Dash 8 also has different engines from the 400. She has 4 General Electric GE-NX engines, as well as angled wings without winglets. These features are copied from the 787, hence where the 747-8 gets its name. Delta Alpha Bravo Yankee Sierra is the 747-8 I have the privilege to ride on today. She's 10 years old and has been with Lufthansa her entire service life. Here's another feature of the 747, the windows at the very front, which actually sit in front of the pilots, which are home to the first class cabin on Lufthansa. You even get a slight forward view. I inquired about a first class upgrade, but for more than $2,000 without a lounge, no way.
Well, I was in the line to board, and now we're delayed again. That's what I get for flying Lufthansa out of Frankfurt.
Yeah, this delay was really irritating. A lot of people were very angry, but I am sorry I was not one of them, especially to see the plane spotting action here at Frankfurt, like this A330 being towed by a super tug. By the way, if you're interested in seeing more behind the scenes content, check out my friend Jeb Brooks' excellent video he made from here at Frankfurt Airport, going behind the scenes at the operations. It was really amazing, and I'll leave the link up above. And right here, seeing 2 747s, one right behind the other, was pretty amazing. This was the best picture I got on this whole trip. Despite the rainy weather, it was still stunning. In fact, this 747-8 was a very special 747-8. She was the 1500th 747 ever built, Yankee Papa. But eventually, after more than 2 hours of delay, it was finally time to head to my business class seat, upstairs on board the 747-8,
We're good.
heading to Newark.
Finally, we're off to Newark, boarding our 747-8. Let's go. Hello. I know where I'm going. Thank you.
Here's the seating on our 747-8. This is the downstairs business class, and here are the measurements for the other seats if you're interested. These seats are just as good as the upstairs seats, but for me, there's nothing like sitting upstairs on a 747, and of course, that's where I selected. However, going up these stairs while filming was no more graceful than my attempt to film going up the 747-400 in the previous video. And here we are, upstairs on a 747-8, my first time up here on the 747-8. The seating up here is arranged in only a 2-2, without a middle seat, which is much more private and with more storage space, instead of the main cabin seating in business class. However, the business class seat itself is the same. My seat would be 84K for today, right next to the main exit door on the right-hand side, on the upper deck of the 747. This was cool, but I'll get into some of the reasons why I wouldn't pick this seat if I had to do it again. Also, here's the menu for those of you who have interest. There was a lot of food on this flight, and eating was definitely something we did quite a lot of, especially in daylight. On the previous flight with the 400, I slept through most of it, so I was really going to enjoy this flight back home to the United States. Now, my business class seat has plenty of space, a TV which you can touch to control for your entertainment, or use the remote, more on that later, and lots of legroom.
Seat's got the wraparounds on it, roll light. Light flips on off like that sort of deal. Got the storage in these bins over here to my right, which are quite nice. We'll check those out more later. And we've got our seat. It's got the other person there.
Now, my arm placement sitting in this seat is what really makes this seat awkward, as you can easily bump your neighbor's elbow by mistake. Soon, water and pre-departure nuts were offered in these little recyclable bags. It was time to push back, heading for Newark, after de-icing, that is. Also, this is where I have to give credit where it is due. This footage would not have been possible without my seat neighbor in the row right behind me with a window seat, as he took almost all this footage. You'll meet him in a little bit, but let's take off.
That's better. Oh yeah. See you later, Frankfurt, A340. And rotate. Here we go. And we're up in the air.
And just like that, we were off, heading across the ocean, bound for Newark. This is a good time to take a look at tonight's route map. Today's flight would take us up out of Frankfurt, crossing over the Netherlands, crossing up over Britain and Ireland as we make our way to the north-northwest over the ocean, crossing down over northern Canada, into Maine, over New York State, and down into New York City. It will take us just over 8 hours and 20 minutes to cover the 3,857 miles at 37,000 feet today. Once up in the air, I decided to check out my bedding. It was stuffed down here with a pillow, which was very comfortable, but it was right in the footwell. I'm not much of a germaphobe, but that seems kinda dirty to me. Anyway, the seat had plenty of space, pocket for the safety card, and I put my pillow behind my head as we continued our flight. There was also the remote, as I mentioned earlier, located in the armrest for the in-flight entertainment. This remote was better than on the 747-400, but it still felt antiquated and it barely worked. Amazing for a plane that's only about 10 years old. Eventually, though, I did get the map function figured out, and at least that worked for the entire flight. Also, For some reason, there's a keyboard and a slot for a credit card on this remote. I have no idea what for, as there was nothing to buy. Someone leave me a comment if you know what this is for. Also, despite being a newer plane than the 747-400, there were no air vents, and it was really warm throughout this whole flight. That was not something I cared for. The seat controls were the same as on the 747-400, however, they were also easy to bump and move inadvertently. I'm really sorry to say it, but this in-flight entertainment system felt clunky and old, just like on a 747-400. However, the 747-8 is newer, and I really expected this to be better. Is Lufthansa's IFE this bad on other planes? Also, I don't consider myself much of a headphone snob, but these headphones sucked, and definitely would not pass the Jeb Brooks approval test. One feature I really do like about sitting upstairs is these extra storage bins on the side wall. They're great, and provide plenty of space for all your bits and bobs. I stuffed my bedding in there. However, after losing a camera on the previous flight to Europe, I did not put any camera gear down here, or I would probably have lost it. It is worth keeping in mind though it's very large, and also makes a nice flat surface for filming, or in my case, looking over the safety card, because safety is important. About an hour and 10 minutes after takeoff, the lunch service began. This was very nice.
Are you here for something to drink?
Can I get a water?
Just regular water or sparkling?
Still water.
Anything else for you?
Champagne.
Champagne? Sure.
After taking my drink order, the flight attendant brought around this starter. Now I'm not 100% sure what was in here. Cheese and olive and tomato, and then my champagne, which I ordered purely for research purposes, and for photos for thumbnails, like this one. And also another feature of sitting upstairs, we can't forget the window view, flying upstairs on a 747. Below us is Iceland, which I intend to visit someday. It's also worth noting, I did not like my champagne. However, I'm not someone who drinks, so I wouldn't know if this was good or bad. My seatmate then asked me if I was going to drink the rest of it, to which I replied no. He kindly took the glass and immediately drank the rest of my champagne, in what had to be under 5 seconds. I was certainly impressed with his speedy champagne drinking skills. Try saying that 5 times fast. Also, the hot towel felt like it had just come out of boiling water. I mean, this thing nearly burned off my hands. Needless to say, I did not use it for long. However, the textile quality was pretty good. I also toasted you guys with another glass of champagne, which the flight attendant filled before I could even say I didn't want any more. Pretty soon my appetizer came around. This was really good. It even included a salad. However, the salmon was delicious, and this is something I'll never complain about on a plane. Ordinarily, I'd avoid ordering fish on an airplane, but I'm flying in business class upstairs on a 747. Why the heck not? This was really good, everything on the plate, even though I'm not 100% sure what the different things were. But isn't that usually the case when eating on an airplane? Salmon was perfect, smoked and delicious, but also lightly salted. Pretty soon my main course came around, and I continued with more fish. This cod was also excellent, very delicious, and I mean anything with bacon is hard to mess up, right? I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, and also the flight attendants finally refilled my water. I also had these cool salt and pepper shakers with the Lufthansa logo on them. These were cool, and a nice, very simple feature. The fish was really good, mostly due to the fat from the bacon, but the potatoes definitely needed salt. Pretty soon my dessert also came around. It was delicious. Needless to say, I was very impressed. I also managed to get the IFE working, which was nice.
Well, we are almost to the halfway point. I've really enjoyed the flight so far. The daytime flights are so much better, and I even met a new friend here on the seat behind me, and he wanted to say hello.
Hey, I'm Emmett. It's so cool being on the upper deck. This plane is just amazing. It's so big. It's comfortable.
And we both get to sit upstairs in the business class seats, so that's better just by itself. Well, this flight is, like I mentioned, almost to the halfway point. We unfortunately don't have much of a view because there's the ocean out there, right? There's nothing to see out there now. Alright, so here's the bathroom on the 747-8. Pretty standard bathroom in an airplane. It's been kept clean this whole time in business class, which is always nice.
But it is very hot on the plane. There's no air vents, so there's no air conditioning, so this is the only spot with an air vent. It's the coolest spot on the plane. Right there, man. So you got the mirror over here with the sink, stuff like that. Lots of other things, refreshing tools, dental kit, TV changing table, standard apparatus there. And you got the long length meal here. It goes like that. Overall, the flight's been pretty good. I've really enjoyed it. We have about 2 hours left to fly. I'm gonna take care of some things in here and go back to my seat, get the pre-landing meal, hopefully.
Also, I did test out the bed on this flight. Despite it being a daytime flight, it was long and comfortable. The pre-landing meal was also delicious, an Indian curry, although I can't remember what exactly was in this. I think chicken and spinach or
Alright,
something
well, we're
like
coming into land. We'll be on the ground in about 30-35 minutes. It's unfortunate. I really don't want this to end, but it's gotta end at some point, right?
Yeah,
Have you enjoyed it?
yeah, it's great. It's so cool up here.
It's like your own semi-private plane, only 30 or so seats up here.
I know. It's just like when you go through turbulence and you hardly feel it anymore.
And the 747-8's upper deck is the length of a 737-800.
It's crazy.
And of course, you see the engine view. You got a much better engine view than I did on this flight.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's been pretty good. We're getting ready to land here. Should be getting on the ground soon.
I put on some TV, and pretty soon we made our way into New York City, flying into Newark Airport, by the way. Also, thanks again to Emmett for taking all this amazing footage out of his window, as my view was horrible. He also eventually plans to have a YouTube channel, and if it's up by the time this video's up, I'll leave the link right here in the upper right. Welcome everyone to Newark Liberty International Airport. Also, the full edit-free takeoff and landing footage is linked in the description if you'd like to see it. There are a lot of airlines that serve Newark, and I had no idea, as this was my first visit to Newark. I also spotted the New York City skyline out there, which is always amazing to see. I also spotted this Porter Q400 and One World Trade Center sitting out there, which was amazing. Passed an Austrian 787, and I even got to check out the cockpit on this 747-8. What an amazing experience this was. Thanks so much to the pilots for letting me take these pictures, and to the friendly flight attendants for seeing that I was filming and asking if I was interested in seeing the cockpit, to which I said absolutely. These were my favorite pictures of the entire trip. And this flight on the 747-8 will serve as a core memory for years to come. Hopefully, it's not been my last flight on a 747. Now it's onward from this 747 to a long flight back home to Detroit with United, and that will be another video coming soon.
Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, wishing you blue skies and tailwinds.